An IndyCar NASCAR Cup Series doubleheader might be a lot closer than we realize. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more on today's episode. How's it going, everyone? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. Big report regarding the Gen 7. Obviously, we're going to talk about IndyCar and NASCAR potentially sharing a weekend in the near future. Truck Series news, Ross Chastain has a big announcement. Greg Biffle's back this weekend. There's so much to talk about in today's episode, I barely know where to start. I guess let's start with this one random bit of news I saw the other day. Trevor Bayne, remember him? He's apparently opening up a coffee shop in his hometown of Knoxville, Tennessee. So if any of you are out in the Tennessee, Knoxville area, I don't know when it opens, but yeah, Trevor Bayne is going to be running a coffee shop. Cool. But yeah, moving on from that, let's talk about Truck Series stuff. This Friday night, the trucks are not with the NASCAR Cup Series or the Xfinity Series. In fact, no, the trucks are going to be more in my neck of the woods out in North Texas at Texas Motor Speedway. They're going to be doubling up with IndyCar this weekend. Trucks Friday night, IndyCar Saturday night. Unfortunately, I don't have plans to be at those races. Other things came up, but it should be a fun one to watch, and the reason this is notable, for a couple of reasons actually. Firstly, Greg Biffle is making his return, and he's not driving a Ford. No, he's driving a Toyota for Kyle Busch. The announcement was made a couple months ago, and I was as surprised as anyone when he made that announcement, but yeah, Greg Biffle, who has not raced in NASCAR since 2016, he will be running just a one-off race for Kyle Busch in the 51 truck this weekend at Texas. If you're an old school NASCAR fan, you know, it's always kind of cool to see a familiar face, an older familiar face kind of come back, even if it's just for one race. I am glad he's running the trucks, and he's running in a very competitive truck, very competitive equipment. Maybe Greg Biffle shows up and wins the race. That would be fun to see. If Greg Biffle, who is a Truck Series champion way back in the day, what if he came back triumphantly and won this race? It's not out of the question. He's driving one of the best trucks in the field. Might be a little rusty, but you know, a couple months ago when the trucks were at Texas most recently, Greg Biffle was there, I believe Thursday afternoon, to do some test laps for Kyle Busch. So Greg Biffle, it will not be stepping into a truck for the first time ever later this week. He was in the 51 truck earlier a couple months ago. So needless to say, I used to be kind of a Biffle fan. I was a Roush fan growing up, a big Kenseth fan, Carl Edwards, Mark Martin, all those guys. Biffle was included, so I'm excited to see what Greg Biffle can do. Hopefully he makes kind of a triumphant return. Again, no news, no reports that this is going to be an ongoing thing. I think this is just a one-off deal that, you know, Kyle Busch needed someone to fill that seat for 1 week, and Biffle got the call. So we'll see how it goes. More Truck Series news just came out literally right before I hit record on this episode. Ross Chastain earlier today revealed that he is now switching from Xfinity points to truck points mid-season. Ross Chastain has coined himself, rightfully so, the busiest driver in NASCAR. He's basically running a full-time truck, Xfinity, and Cup schedule this year. But with NASCAR's current rules, you can only run for points, like actually collect points, in one of those three series. He chose the Xfinity series at the start of the year. Maybe that's because he thought he was going to be driving for Chip Ganassi and was likely going to be a championship contender, but obviously that all fell apart in the offseason. He's run okay in the Xfinity series, but he's driving for mid-tier teams there, and he hasn't really been able to break much further than in the top 10. But in the trucks this year for Nice Motorsports, he's already got a win. And in fact, in all 8 starts this year, he's finished in the top 10. Hindsight's always 20/20, but I'm sure if Ross Chastain knew that team was going to be as good as they've been this year, he probably would have decided to go for truck points at the beginning of the year rather than Xfinity. But Ross Chastain announced today that he is switching over from Xfinity to truck points, which means a few things. For Chastain, he is now at 0 truck points. He starts out at 0, and per the rule book, you have to get into the top 20 in points by the end of the regular season, and you have to win a race to lock yourself into the playoffs. So basically, that's what Ross Chastain is going to have to spend his summer doing. He's going to have to be consistent enough to get in the top 20 in points, which I don't think will be that big of an issue for him. I think he'll do that pretty easily. But now, because his points have effectively reset, he cannot use that win from Kansas as a way to lock himself into the playoffs. Chastain's going to have to win another race between now and the end of the regular season. That might be a little easier said than done. Obviously, the win at Kansas was impressive, and I just said he's finished in the top 10 in every race he's been in this year. It might be easier for him now that Kyle Busch isn't going to be running any more truck races this year, so that might open the door a little bit more for guys like Ross Chastain. So, but it's going to be exciting to watch nonetheless. Ross Chastain, I would say, has won over quite a few fans with some of his recent successes, so I'll be rooting for him. I hope he's able to get a win between now and September, I guess, and lock himself in. That would be awesome for him and for the sport, I think, and for the truck series specifically. Now, before we get into some of the bigger stories I have today, again, this is a very full episode. I'm kind of flying through things here. Let's talk about TV ratings and attendance for Pocono, because kind of an interesting story there. The Cup Series race at Pocono this last Sunday received a 1.4 in the overnight ratings category, which is off somewhat from a 1.6 in this race last last year. Not too shocking, expectations are never very high coming into Pocono, but also I think with the fact that the race was easily the worst race, least entertaining race of the season, I think maybe fans who checked in on social media saw how people were complaining about the race, probably opted not to tune in. Also, there was the threat of rain and weather. Maybe some fans thought it would get delayed. I don't know. That's always an excuse people give, but I don't know. So we had a couple weeks in a row of much better ratings. This week, significantly worse. So it is what it is. Up and down season still, but I think overall it's still been a net positive. Now, there was one positive thing to come out of this weekend at Pocono. Attendance for this year's June race was actually up compared to last year's June race. According to Jeff Gluck on Twitter, yes, they saw an increase in ticket sales for this year's race. And this actually shocks me more than the TV ratings because, like I said, there was weather kind of threatening. I really wouldn't have thought this race would have sold as many tickets compared to other Pocono races. But hey, them Pocono fans, them Pennsylvania fans still love their stock car racing. So Pocono Raceway, that crowd showed up. It was still a decent crowd. I mean, what I watched in the race felt like it was an okay crowd. Not a great, but not a bad crowd. But nice to see at least an increase in ticket sales from last year. I guess that's a pro. Okay, we've got two more big stories to talk about in this episode. I thought about dividing this up into 2 episodes, but I already have a bunch of other videos I wanted to make this week, so I figured I'd jam it all into one. And these two kind of go together because they both involve IndyCar, sort of, and NASCAR. So IndyCar fans, get ready. I'm going to do my best talking about your sport. According to this tweet from Adam Stern, NASCAR is said to be consulting with Dallara Group? I don't know how to say it. I don't speak Italian, but it's an Italian race car developer that makes the chassis for IndyCar, and NASCAR is consulting them as a possibility to help design the new Generation 7 car. Stern reports then that some executives believe that NASCAR teams custom build too many parts of their cars unnecessarily, which has led to excessive spending but hasn't improved on-track action. So one of the goals of the Gen 7 project is to move to more single-source suppliers to try to reduce spending. I do think this could be a necessity because of the fact that it reduces spending and reduces costs. We've already seen how NASCAR's kind of enacted rules in the last couple of years to try and keep teams from overspending on things that other teams can't afford. The pit gun controversy from last year kind of comes to mind. It didn't go so well at the beginning, but it seems like they've gotten a handle on it now. NASCAR now gives the team spec pit guns. Everyone has the exact same pit guns, so now teams aren't spending hundreds of thousands of dollars doing research to get slightly better pit guns, which is kind of crazy to me. But man, when you got big money, I guess you got to spend it on something. But this makes it sound like NASCAR is continuing to kind of go down that route, reducing spending for the teams, kind of trying to find like a one-size-fits-all in a sense. It's nice to see that they're at least consulting with a team that has experience in major forms of motorsports, working with IndyCar. Obviously, IndyCar chassis don't look anything like NASCAR chassis, but still, a company that has experience in a major racing series, that's a good look. That probably means that they know what they're doing. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what comes out of this. Obviously, no deal has been struck, but they are consulting with them, so maybe something could happen here down the line. Be curious to know what you guys think about this possibility. IndyCar fans, if you're more familiar with Dallara or Diara, however you say it, let me know what you guys think about this whole deal. Now let's talk about a big report I saw this week. NASCAR and IndyCar are seriously considering running a doubleheader weekend of sorts in 2021. By doubleheader, I mean, IndyCar on Saturday and the NASCAR Cup Series on Sunday. Not the trucks. Trucks and IndyCar already kind of have a doubleheader at Texas this week. But no, IndyCar and the Cup Series, same weekend, same track. 2021 is the year that both sides are looking at right now. This is an idea that probably even just a few years ago, neither series would have taken that seriously, but things have changed now, and now talks seemingly have shifted from, oh, should we do it, to where and when. This article by Jordan Bianchi kind of talks about 2 tracks specifically that have emerged as possibly the frontrunners for a potential IndyCar Cup Series doubleheader weekend. The first is Texas Motor Speedway. Texas Motor Speedway is a 1.5 mile oval. The pros here are that both IndyCar and NASCAR already run on these tracks. The Cup Series runs here, late March, early April, and then again in November. IndyCar runs here in June. Texas Motor Speedway president Eddie Gossage is definitely one of the more aggressive track owners, I would say, in NASCAR. In the article by Jordan Bianchi, Eddie Gossage does say that if Texas does get an IndyCar Cup Series doubleheader, IndyCar would race on Saturday night, and the Cup Series would race Sunday afternoon. Now, he doesn't say what dates would be in play, where it would fall on the calendar year. He said it doesn't necessarily have to fall in line with current NASCAR or IndyCar Texas dates. We could see a Texas IndyCar doubleheader in September, possibly. I don't know. I can see pros and cons with this, as I can with most things. Con, I would say, is neither NASCAR nor IndyCar really put on the best show at Texas Motor Speedway, especially since the repave at the start of the 2017 season. Neither NASCAR nor IndyCar really puts on super entertaining races at this track. 2016 and before, I felt like, NASCAR, at least, this was one of the best 1.5 miles on the circuit for NASCAR. And in IndyCar, I didn't follow IndyCar that closely, but from what I saw, they had some pretty crazy racing here. But since the repave reconfiguration, IndyCar and the Cup Series, neither of them put on a consistently good show at Texas Motor Speedway. So to use this as the doubleheader weekend might not be the the best on-track product. But the pro to that, the counter argument to that is that, Texas Motor Speedway for NASCAR is already kind of just an average race weekend. Texas Motor Speedway for IndyCar is also kind of an average race weekend. By combining the two, you could take maybe an average racetrack, an average event, and make it something super, something that many American race fans would see as a can't-miss opportunity. So in other words, you could take a track that for IndyCar and NASCAR traditionally is kind of forgettable and turn it into something memorable. And that could be cool to take that track and kind of boost it up like that. So I can see a pros and cons there. Now in this article, there's a second track that has emerged as a potential front-runner for a future IndyCar and NASCAR Cup Series doubleheader. And this one might be a little more interesting, a little more needs to be ironed out on this one. But it's Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The track that has built IndyCar into what it is today, and the track that NASCAR should probably get away from whenever it can. Now, don't get your feathers ruffled just yet. They're not talking about, an Indianapolis 500 one day, and then the next day NASCAR runs the Brickyard 400. They're not talking about that. Indianapolis Motor Speedway seems to be suggesting that, IndyCar runs at the road course they have there at Indy earlier in the month before the Indy 500. They're thinking at that point NASCAR could possibly double up that race weekend. So you'd have the IndyCar race on the Indianapolis road course, and then that same weekend, the Brickyard 400 for NASCAR. Or better yet, maybe you could get NASCAR on that road course. I don't know, not sure if that would be in the works. Now, Indianapolis Motor Speedway president Doug Bowles did suggest that if he was able to get IndyCar and NASCAR there the same weekend, he would also like to throw in IMSA, perhaps, get an IMSA event around that same time. We could have a sport car, open wheel, stock car, a triple header in the same weekend at Indianapolis. That'd be something. I think that'd be a lot of American motorsports fans' dream right there. Now this one I might be a little bit more in favor of, especially because I think Indianapolis, obviously with their interest in IMSA, getting other series involved as well, it sounds like they have the ability to make this an even bigger event than Texas could. It's weird to say that someone's bigger than Texas. And the variety, NASCAR might just run the oval, which isn't my favorite race in the world, but it's not bad. At least it's historic. And then IndyCar could run on the road course. At least there's variety there. Because like I said earlier, IndyCar and NASCAR don't run great on the current Texas Motor Speedway oval. At least if you bring it over to Indy, you'd see a good show with the IndyCars, I think, and NASCAR would put on a unique show, if nothing else. But then, of course, if you could get NASCAR possibly on the road course as well, that could liven things up even more, so I don't know. Indianapolis Motor Speedway as an IndyCar Cup Series doubleheader, it seems more promising, in my opinion. I would probably be more for that rather than the Texas one, even though I live near Texas and could probably go to that one. I still think Indianapolis would put on a better show for more fans. Now, there's some other tracks that have been named as well as possible destinations for an IndyCar Cup Series doubleheader. Pocono has come to mind because both series race on that track. I don't know if I'd be in favor of that one. I don't think it puts on a great show for either series. The other one that's been mentioned that I think could be very intriguing is the Charlotte Roval. Now, currently, IndyCar does not race at Charlotte in any capacity, so that might be difficult to shoehorn that into their schedule in the next couple of years. But for NASCAR, at least, they run pretty fun there. The race last year was pretty awesome. Sounds like there are definitely a few possibilities, but there's also a lot of bureaucratic pieces that need to come together and agree on things. So could we see an IndyCar Cup Series doubleheader by 2021, as this article suggests? It's a possibility. Whereas I think 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, I don't think anybody on either side would have really considered this a possibility, but it's a possibility now. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Would you like to see an IndyCar NASCAR doubleheader? And if so, which track do you think would suit that the best? Pocono, Indianapolis, Texas, Roval, any others that maybe we haven't mentioned here today that you feel like you should lob in? Give me suggestions. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I look forward to reading your suggestions as always. Thanks for watching. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. You can also buy Out of the Groove t-shirts to represent the show. Those are down by the description. And then, of course, a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. Michael Harrison, at You As The Stars, Mentally Defective, Cameron James, John Koblenz, Jason Arlong, Wesley Donaldson, Isaac Dennison, Mika Suzuki, iFantasyRace.com, TheRacingInsiders.com, Adam Lee, Matthew Kolopoulos, Pepe Luscious, and the rest of these awesome Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so much for your continued support of me, of the show, of the channel. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for going the extra mile. Got several more episodes planned for this week, so I'm going to be pretty busy. But thanks everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll be back probably a lot sooner rather than later. So take it easy, everyone. Have a good rest of your, what day is it? Tuesday. Enjoy it.